Hi guys, welcome to another Barb Stamps video. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this card, and while making this card, we're going to use our Gilded Leafing embellishment. And so I'm going to show you some tips and tricks with this stuff. I did make 25 of these cards, so I do have firsthand knowledge how to work with this stuff. And you do need some heat and stick powder. Now we do sell this in our new 2021 January to June mini catalog. I happen to have some left over. What Stampin' Up! Sold this a number of years ago. They retired it about 3 years ago, I believe. And I still had some left, but obviously I don't have enough, so I'm going to be ordering another container. So let me go ahead and get the supplies for this gorgeous card, and I will show you how to make it. All right, here we go. We are going to be using the Wild Roses background stamp, and I have that mounted on my clear block F right here. I'm also going to be using a sentiment from the Garden Wishes stamp set. I chose the Your Acts of Kindness Are Like a Breath of Fresh Air. We're going to be using Blackberry Bliss ink, Blackberry Bliss cardstock, and some Purple Posy cardstock because they just go together so well. I've also got some brand new gorgeous ribbon in Blackberry Bliss. This is called, I can never remember the names of these things, the Blackberry Bliss 3/8 inch striped ribbon. It's a little bit see-through, and so I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick on using this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of white cardstock. This happens to be 3.5 by 4 3/4, and we are going to ink up about 2/3 of it with the gorgeous Wild Roses stamp. So I'm just going to add some ink to the background stamp, just tapping my pad directly onto the stamp. Okay, get it nice and inky. And then I'm going to take my layer of cardstock and I'm going to put it at the bottom of the stamp, and then I'm going to lay it down. And then I have a scratch paper here, and I'm just going to press the whole thing so that I can transfer all that ink onto my white cardstock. Okay, and then we'll lip that up, and then we have that gorgeous image right there on about 2/3, 3/4-ish or so of the stamp. So we're going to let that dry for a moment, and while we're doing that, we can go ahead and stamp our sentiment on here. So I'm going to ink that up in the Blackberry Bliss. I'm going to stamp that in this bottom section here that I didn't cover with the original stamp. There we go. Close that up. And then I also have a layer for the inside of the card. So I've got that here. So let me go ahead and ink up my other sentiments from the same stamp set. We'll add that near the top here. Center it as best we can. There we go. And so we're done with the stamping. So now we're going to do the Gilded Leafing. So I've got my layer here, and what I decided was the easiest thing to do. If you have like a blotchy stamped image or something like that, you could easily just ink up your stamp with Versamark and stamp it around. But I didn't want to do that. I actually wanted to see how this would work if I used a sponge dauber and some Versamark ink, because then I had a little bit more control where I actually applied the ink. So I just have a little sponge dauber here that I'm going to dedicate to this Versamark ink here. So I just squirted some onto my silicone mat, and I'm just lightly inking this up just by tapping it into the ink and then dabbing some of it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of use the edges of my dauber, and I'm just adding a little bit of ink randomly on my piece of cardstock here. Okay, there we go. Then I'm going to bring in my heat and stick powder, and I happen to have one of these old embossing trays that Stampin' Up! Sold many years ago, so anything you have will work. You know, a folded piece of paper. I've seen people use coffee filters, just, you know, whatever you want to use to catch the powder, very much like embossing powder. So I'm just going to sprinkle that all over my card, And then I'm going to gently tap off the excess, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a flick to get off some more of it. And this is one of those cases where you don't really care if you have powder where you don't necessarily want it, because it's just going to make it look really cool. So, but what I found that a good thing was to kind of brush off some of the powder, because you can see the sponge dauber kind of left like circular blobs. And I didn't really want them to all be, you know, circular. I wanted them to be a little bit more random. So I found that if I kind of rubbed some of that off, that the look was a little bit better. So let me grab my heat tool after I clean up my mess, because I don't want my heat tool to blow everything all over the place. All right, so I'm going to heat set this powder, and now you just want to heat set it just until it turns shiny. So, and it does happen pretty quickly. You don't want to keep holding your heat tool on the powder once it's turned shiny, because you will then burn it and you will take away the stickiness of it, and then it will defeat the whole purpose of what you're trying to do. So I'm just going to turn this on. You'll see me kind of go from spot to spot to spot, and as soon as it turns shiny, I'm going to move on. That happens pretty quickly, and you can kind of see where it's a little bit shiny. So that's where the stickiness is now. So now the gilded leafing. This stuff, I'm not going to lie, can be a big mess. So you want to be very careful with it, and I will show you how to be very careful with it. So when you open the lid, be very careful and don't have any sort of a draft going on. So don't don't open it while you maybe have if you're work below a heat vent, don't open it while your heat vent is on, because it will literally fly all over the place. The stuff is very light and it is very airy and it will fly around. So you want to take it from this container and get it onto your cardstock. So I have found the best thing to do is to actually put some of this in a larger container, and I will show you some of the containers that I've used. I started out with this. This is like a plastic shoe box that you can buy at like Walmart. And while it is a nice, deep, large box, it has a lot of indentations in the bottom of it. Okay, so you can kind of see there's a big bump here. And what I found was when I dumped my leafing in there, it kind of got stuck in these troughs, I guess, for lack of a better word. And when I would go to press my cardstock in there, it wasn't picking up the gold leafing that was in these troughs. So this was, in my opinion, a fail. Moving on to my next container, and this is probably too big for my camera. This is a very large round Tupperware container that I've had forever. I don't even know where I got it or when I got it. So I thought, hey, this is really deep. This would probably work great. And while, yes, I was able to dump my leafing in there, and it kind of contained it so it didn't go flying everywhere, it's round. So when I pressed my square piece of cardstock in there, I couldn't get to the edges because this is round. So this, another kind of fail. I will continue to use it to get the excess leafing out of there, but I'm going to try something else now on this video. And this is another Tupperware container that I have that I don't really use very often, or actually ever use. So it's a very large square. Great. It does not have any sort of indentations in the bottom. It's very flat. It's about, I don't know, 2.5 inches wide. It does have a lid. And so what I did was I took some Static Guard and I sprayed it with some Static Guard first, so that when hopefully to kind of keep the leafing at bay. So I will then take some of my leafing and drop it into the container. You will just be amazed at how flighty this stuff can be. And you want to be very gentle. So don't like forcefully push your paper into there. You want to gently drop it in, because if you don't, and you cause any sort of air disturbance, the stuff is going to start a-flying. And you can see that it's already doing that to me. And if you have some big chunks, you can pick them up and you can press them onto your adhesive spots. I've got a pretty big chunk here, so I'm going to kind of move it around, pull it off. So it's very, there's a lot more in there than you'd actually think. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get all of your sticky spots covered, and I'm sure you can probably see it flying around in the camera here. And so I'm looking around, there's a sticky spot right there, so I need to add some there. And you can see that it's just, it works really well, and it is pretty cool. So then after you're done getting all the leafing on there that you want, you kind of want to press it into place. And then you want to gently use the little brush that comes as a take your pick tool attachment, and just kind of scrape it off. And it will come off wherever there isn't glue, okay? And again, I'm not really trying to throw this around. I'm trying to be very gentle and not cause a lot of air disturbance, because air disturbance is not your friend. Trust me on this. This stuff will go flying everywhere. Okay, so you can kind of see that it's coming off nicely right there. It looks like I may have a little bit extra. And then I'll kind of try to flick it off my brush. And then I'll set my brush aside. I'll use my fingers to kind of clear off any excess that's on there. Again, being gentle and not very crazy with it. I honestly think that spraying it with the static guard really helps. I did spray the lid also. And so now I'm just going to move this to a different spot in my room. And then you can see what happens is you get little flecks of gold everywhere that you had the heat and stick powder. Now let me go ahead and close this up too before, you never know what's going to happen when Barb's stamping. It could be a gigantic mess. All right, so we'll kind of tap it off. I have found, I don't think you want to run this stuff down the sink. So what I have found works best for me to clean it up is to use either some Scotch tape or some packing tape, and just clean it off with the tape. We won't do a perfect job right now because we don't want the video to be too long, but kind of clean it up with your tape and then just throw the tape into the trash. All right, so now we can kind of work on finishing up the card. I also have a little strip of Purple Posy cardstock here. This measures 3/8 by 3.5 because it's going to be just as long as my card. I'm going to grab a little tiny piece of my Stamparatus grid paper, and I'm going to cover. I'm going to put this on so it's kind of like covering the seam of where the ink from the stamp is done. So it looks like it's lower on this side than this side. So I'm lining up this point with one of the lines on my grid paper, and then that is where I am going to start putting my strip down, and I'm going to come all the way across to this other side and make sure that it's even there. And that just kind of helps me eyeball that so it's nice and what I call perfect. Now here is the ribbon that we're going to use, and I'm going to cover my seam piece with this. Now you can see if I was to go ahead and just put that on the card, you can see right through it. Okay, that's not the look I was going for this particular project. I wanted it to be just a dark piece of ribbon, and so if I cover up my piece there of the Purple Posy, then it's the look I'm going for. All right, so then I'm going to bring my tape back in, and I am a taper, so I'm going to tape my ribbon to the back of my project here on both ends. Oops, get that out of the way so I can make sure that I get that across. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add this to a layer of Blackberry Bliss. So this piece here was 3.5 by 4 3/4. My piece of Blackberry Bliss is 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. So I'm just going to have a tiny little border of this color. So I'm just going to line this up. Isn't that gold just gorgeous? I just think that just makes the whole card, honestly. I don't need any other embellishments. I've got an 8.5 by 5.5 piece of Purple Posy cardstock. We'll go ahead and add this layer to it. Go ahead and add 5 dimensionals so we won't have any sagging in the middle. go. And we'll just line this up on all four sides. And then we have a gorgeous card. It doesn't take too long to use the leafing. The biggest thing is you just want to do it slowly. Everything you do with the leafing, you want to do it slowly so you're not causing air disturbance, which then causes the stuff to go flying around. That was my thing that I learned the best. Now, the container that you use, obviously, you'll find something that works for you. That large Tupperware container works I think it's going to work pretty good for me. As long as I remember to be careful, because it's nice and square with no low spots in the container. All right, so I hope you guys are enjoying this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you are, and be sure to subscribe right down here in the corner so you can be notified when I upload more new videos using these amazing products out of our new catalog. Let me get the catalog and I'll show you where the stuff is located. So it's on page 33. You'll see we've got the Gilded Leafing embellishment right here, along with the heat and stick powder right here. And then you can sort of see on this sample right here, there is a little bit of that gold leafing used on some of those flower pieces there. So also on this card here, on the flowers. So it's just really pretty. And this is covering the sentiment words here. So lots of fun. So they even have a little bit of directions here telling you how to use it, but I've already showed you, so you don't need those directions. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can order your supplies at shoppingwithbarb.com. I have a monthly host code. I do offer free gifts with purchase each month, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and then I hope you have a wonderful day.